Jive Hive Jeff from Two Hacks Garage. Well, it's pretty early in the morning. Had a super long day at Micah's shop yesterday working on Project 9194. Can't really see it on camera, but I am taking some stuff apart with the 68 Thunderbird. That's going to be something down the road when shop space opens up. So what am I doing up so early? Well, one, I'm just checking out some parts and pieces my son painted for his little mini bike he's built in here. Actually, pretty cool project. It was a green Chinesium piece of junk mini bike that sat out back all blown up, and he's been doing a really good job with me helping restore this thing. But what am I doing up other than checking this paint? I'm getting some stuff ready because I'm going to Jimmy's this morning. As you saw us do in the past is we have taken that small block I'm building for a friend of mine. It's going to be a 388 cubic inch small block Chevy Stroker. And we took an old Van Norman boring bar and we bored it over. So the next step that we need to do is actually get it honed. Well, Jimmy, a few weeks ago, as you guys saw, had picked up a honing cabinet, and he's been doing some modifications here and there with it. I've talked to him on the phone, but more are needed. But to keep the ball rolling on this project, we're going to go ahead and we're going to hone Todd's block so we can get it in the hot tank. So here pretty soon, we can actually assemble that bad boy and get it in Todd's car. I did talk to Todd, and he's in the current process of kind of coming up time frames. I think here in a couple weeks, we're going to yank that engine and transmission, which is going to allow him time to clean and detail the engine bay to what he wants. It is a very nice car. He wants everything spotless, clean, show-worthy, and just to match everything else he's done a really good job on. Along with that, I need to get a hold of the transmission to take it to another one of my friends who has a transmission shop to have that rebuilt. So when the engine's done, the transmission's done, the engine bay's done, made it all together, put it in that Z28, get it all tuned, all dialed in. So when springtime hits, Todd can go out, go to his Cars and Coffees, car shows, hang out with us, go do all that fun stuff, and overall just enjoy that car. So with that, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my stuff. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone here. My son and everyone's going to be gone. They have a trip they're going on today for my daughter's cheerleading stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to Jimmy's. We're going to work on honing that engine block and get that done so we can hot tank it and get it assembled. So with that, guys, we'll see you soon. It's only about 30 minutes away. Later. Jeff from 2X Garage. Well, I'm back at Jimmy's, and we're going to go over how to use one of these honing cabinets. You saw a video last time where we just were testing it out. Some modifications were made to this, one of them being this stop here, which we'll explain later. But the first step is obviously getting an engine block in here. It's just as simple as using an engine hoist type crane, and it's got these sliders here that it sits on for this. And then what you do is you align your cam tunnels, front and rear, to this bar. And what Jimmy is doing right now is there's a locking mechanism to hold this block in place. So we've already centered it left and right, this way, that way, and there's this bar right here that will clamp this thing into place. So what he's doing is putting that on. Jimmy, where's the other one at?
You might want to tell them that the original clamps gave way.
Yeah.
So I designed one that works perfect.
So the original clamps, yes, did kind of give away, and this isn't the stock configuration for this machine. So basically what Jimmy did was he used his engineering machinist mind that always wants to improve things, makes them better, and makes them also easier. So he developed this clamp system with this bar stock right here, very heavy duty, and developed this little tool here, so it's going to clamp both ways. So basically what you do at that point is you run this bar across. As you can see here, it's centered on there, so it's an actual center point, and you go in and tighten it down. So that is what he's going to do here. Today with this video, I'll be honest, I forgot my tripod, so what it is, but basically what Jimmy's going to do, he's going to go through and he's going to start getting this thing all tightened up into place. So this is the first step. Now mind you, this is the 388 that needs to be honed. In a previous video, Jimmy and I went over on using the Van Norman 777S boring bar, and we took an already 350 Chevy that was 30 over, so 355, took it over to 4060. And with the stroke cranking this, it'll be 388 cubic inches. So what he is doing now is he is just getting that tightened up so it doesn't want to slide around. And he's got jam nuts that he made in there, and he will tighten this up. So after you tighten the top, you can see that bar kind of bending. Jimmy, what's the thickness of this bar? 3/8?
Yeah.
So you can see there, it's locked. He's got this thing very well locked in place. So after
What it does is it just cramps the ends down on it.
Yeah, you can see here that your pinch points on each side, and it just starts pushing that thing down.
And then if you sort of make sure it doesn't go anywhere, you bring the bottom nut up to it, and that locks it to where vibration during the honing process doesn't make anything move or loosen up anything. It's a little time consuming, but at least it works.
Now, one thing that when we did originally play around with this, we did see some modifications that we did want to make. We'll go over that in a little bit, but the one thing that we're still kind of working on is a correct pump. We've tried 3 different ones. It's not really pumping the amount of fluid, oil, the honing oil like we'd like to, but it is what it is, and we will just have to deal with it.
Well, actually, we were being cheap.
Yeah.
We were being cheap when we got some pond pumps. I had one, Jeff had one, the original one didn't work. So we got a brand new one, and it still doesn't like pumping oil. So, but it is what it is.
So after you get the block in, the kind of nice about this is you saw that slide out there. It makes putting the block in a lot easier. And it also, when you put it back in, just prevents oil from slopping all around on your legs and getting your pants and everything all nasty, dirty. So what Jimmy is doing now is this engine actually rotates. I'll probably have to give him a hand here in a second. There's like a little cam mechanism in there with a slider on each side. I'll kind of get in here and get a better view of that.
Well, certainly it rotates. How do you think it runs?
So you see that, yeah. So you see that right there. It's actually a slider, and it allows this engine block to do this and to do this. That way, when this is going up and down, it is level with that. All right. So now what you're seeing here is we got it leveled out. If you look at the bubble.
A screw mechanism to where we don't have to do it this way anymore. We just turn the handle.
Yeah, so if you guys seen like worm gears and all that, Jimmy had called me last night, and he's talking about making this so you actually have a handle with a worm gear, and it would be able to make that thing go like that, because this is relying upon the actual weight of the engine. So if you're to really do this by yourself, depending what size engine you're working with, it could be really heavy. You don't want to pinch any fingers. Long story short, this is a small block Chevy. This is not a big block Ford, so this is a lot easier, but you can only imagine if you were working with a big block Ford, big block Chevy, or a Hemi. So kind of the next step is he is going to go in to the cylinder, and he's going to start getting this hone kind of set up to the cylinder itself. And while that is doing there, it pushes out the stones and those little arms that are on the side of it. So if I can't get a good view of that in there. Yeah, there you go.
You can only turn it about a quarter of a turn at a time. this operates just backwards from my other home that I had. There's other companies that make honing stones that look like a sunning, but the sunning hone, you turn this the other direction and tighten it up than you do the other ones. And the reason being, come on, I guess I am going the wrong way. I get it wrong. Okay.
All right, so if you see here, we pulled this out. So you see these are the actual honing stones. Jimmy, what are the other little plates there? Is that just like a guide plate?
Guide.
So the other pieces you see on there is a guide plate within the cylinder. And what he's doing is he's pushing it out into the cylinder so those stones just are barely going to hit the sides of the cylinder itself. Now this thing does kind of operate on resistance. There is an ammeter on here, kind of tells you how much resistance is going through this. And I think it's a 6 amp setup, so if it hits 6 amps, it's going to pretty much stop because it's too much resistance.
There, I can see the teeth on it. I bought this thing last week.
So those are the stones, and those are the guide plates. See how that goes in and out? So what happens there is that will uniformly press against that cylinder.
There's a rough adjustment on them, and boy, it is rough too.
Yep, rough adjustment and fine adjustment. It's finding that right one. Jimmy picked this up less than 2 weeks ago. We've been playing around with it. It is exactly the opposite of the one that he used to use. So it's still a learning curve for all of us. And what this bar is here, Jimmy modified that, so that's an actual stop. So once we are, get this set up here, what you're going to do is you're going to run this down into the cylinder to the bottom before it hits anything in the mains. And then we'll set that bar right there as a stop. So when you're honing, you can go up and down with it and prevent it from actually hitting anything in the mains. You don't want to hit that in the mains. One, it will destroy your stones. Those aren't cheap, and it's just not a good thing. And here's the gauge I was telling you about. It's going to tell you the resistance of it and how many amps it's pulling. So I think this was 6 amps. So if it tries to get past 6 amp, if that's too much resistance in here, it'll actually stop.
Well, you'll hear it load.
Yeah, it'll load up and it'll actually slow down. Now, the kind of cool thing about this is, if you see here, it does have the different U-joints with it. So this does articulate, because when this arm is actually coming down, it changes the angle of that both ways. So it's going to, the way this is set up, it will stay true to the cylinder itself. All right, so what Jimmy's going to do here, he's putting some oil down in there, because you do have to have some sort of a lubricant on this to hone. So he's just going to mix some oil in there, get that in there. And mind you, we do have to hone this block roughly 2 thousandths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this. So you see how that stop is hitting? That's preventing it from going down into the mains and chipping up all of your stones and making a whole big old mess.
The only reason we're doing it this way is until we get the air cylinder. The air system was shot on this machine when we bought it, or when I got it. So until I get the air system figured out,
doing it by hand.
I have to get some new pieces and parts for it. Then we will continue to run it by hand.
So if you got the hand mechanism here, you can do it by hand, or it does have the pneumatic system back here.
And seeing the air system's there, I have to put a block in it.
Yeah, so we still got some things to figure out with it, but it's operational. It's a learning curve, and we'll get there. All right, so the next step is this. You know, we did bore this thing to 4058, but we needed to go about another 2.5 thousandths to make the piston to wall clearance correct. So Jimmy set up his dial bore gauge, and so he is actually checking the cylinder to see where he's at with it now before we get started.
Right now we're 2.5 thousandths on the negative side, so the hole's smaller.
So we set it up 2.5 thousandths on the gauge, the negative side. So when we're honing this, we'll just keep checking. And once the dial bore gauge zeroes out, we know that's where we want to be with that. That's kind of a little lengthy setup. I didn't film that. Maybe one day we'll show you how to do that. But for today's purpose, it is literally just honing. So basically, dial bore gauge, make sure it's correct where it was bored. Set your dial bore gauge up to where you want to hone everything off. And what you'll do is you'll actually hone until you zero that dial bore gauge out, and you're good to go. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to, oh yeah, real quick. Here's that stop arm right there. And what happens is this actually engages with the surface.
Sure the honing machine doesn't travel on the left or right.
Yeah, and then that thing's going to go up and down like that. And this will prevent that from stopping and hitting in the mains. I unplugged the pump, Jimmy. Yeah. Okay. So you heard that click of that resistance. That's because they were pushed out too far. Be right back. All right, so now we know we got it set up. Basically, with this, we got to figure out the hose piece of this, but we're just dribbling some oil down there for some honing lubricant. Now, this is a specific lubricant that Jimmy purchased to actual hone. Kind of a messy job, but it is what it is. Something you got to do.
Well, Jeff ran the oil on my finger.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
It doesn't look like a hone.
The whole goal here is not to take a bunch of rough metal off. It is literally just to hone it. Boring is to open up the cylinder, not the hone.
And I've already preset this on another. Well, no, I haven't preset it on this block. Or make sure it's in the bottom of the cylinder. I set it on another.
All right, so Jimmy did some test honing, and now what he's doing is, so we talked about this stop mechanism in here.
It's just a hair off.
We're going to readjust that. And basically what we're doing is we really don't want, like I said earlier, we do not want those honing stones to get down in the mains, but you want to make sure you do hone the cylinder.
You hold the head. As soon as I loosen it, it's going to move. Don't let it fall down.
So he is loosening this side of the guide stop.
Which I made and put it on there.
Yep, he made. Jimmy is a hell of a machinist, an idea guy, and he puts those ideas into action. And that was one thing we wanted to do, was have that ability to have guide stop, so you can literally focus on the job at hand, which is honing.
Take your camera and focus on this thing.
Okay.
And I'll tell them what that actually was.
Wait. Okay.
I was trying to figure out what to use as a stop and how I'd bend it. And I happen to remember I had one of those push things that goes across the front of a glass door when you go into a business that was all bent on one end, and it just happened to have that curve in it, and this was straight enough. I just cut it off, put some slots in it, bingo, solved my problem.
So there's a
kind of a Rube Goldberg way, but it worked out.
So
perfect.
There's another reason not to get rid of stuff, because you're going to need it one day. It's probably been sitting around Jimmy's shop for a long time. And guess what? Didn't have to go out and buy anything this time to modify it, and it actually is a nice, big, thick piece of metal.
You just always need to remember, never tell a machinist he can't do something.
Exactly. So real quick, these slots here are to adjust this bar up and down to engage the deck here. And once you have that set, you're pretty much good to go. So I'm going to try to get in here so you can see down in there.
We got to go way.
We got to go way down.
This thing some more. Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this thing adjusted, and yeah, have a whole lot of fun.
I knew it wasn't at the bottom of the hole. It didn't sound like it. I'm probably just going to have to back this off a little. Just put this on the bottom, let it rest on a main, and then pull it up.
So what he's doing here is, I don't know if my mic picked that up or not. He's going to loosen it, push it down against the main. And then he's going to bring it up a little bit till it's at the bottom of the cylinder, and then he will lock it into place. Kind of hard to see, but you can see the stone right down in there. There you go.
No, not at the bottom yet. Just barely. I gotta make sure it hangs out. You can hang it out a little bit, but you just can't get it into the main web. Yeah.
And what we'll do is we won't have to unloosen this thing, but we'll go in and before we hone the other cylinders, we will check.
I think I have this right, but and it varies from cylinder to cylinder. Some places the main web, I think the center of the block is where the main web doesn't have as much clearance. But what I will do now, when I start, I'll check it. Watch your hand.
So he's going to go down and check. Look at that. Not in the main webs. He's going to turn it out a little bit so we can actually get honing on this. And yeah. Okay. Get some oil in there. Going to turn it out a little bit more to adjust it out. And this is a process where practice does make perfect. Yep. Oh, there we go.
We'll just have to hone the bottom of the block.
So he's going to turn it out just a little bit more. And this is where practice does make perfect. Jimmy's done this a lot. I haven't. Yeah. You need the bore gauge? So now he's honed a little bit, and he is going to check the gauge. I'll come over and show you what that looks like. So we had it set at 2.5 thousandths.
We got about 1/4 thousand, almost a 1/2 thousandth out of it.
So yeah, you can see it's actually starting to put those cross hatches in there.
Still have quite a bit to go.
We still have a lot to go. So,
but the next engine I bore will preset some of the clearance in it.
yeah, this is a learning lesson. Like I said, this is a new machine. Jimmy's done this a lot, but this is a new machine. So it is literally just learn as you go. You be safe
Well,
with it.
It's new to me. It's an old machine.
Well, yeah. So yeah, what we're going to do is we are going to show you this first cylinder, and then from there, just kind of time lapse it out.
The oil.
Yeah, this is a messy job.
Well, I have to have my hand up here. I don't want
There's that little fine adjustment that he's talking about there. That's just barely moving anything. He's just moving it till he gets some of that resistance. And, yep, so you saw it lock up. That was trying to pull more than 6 amps. So he's going to pull it back down. A little bit too much there.
Probably if I tighten the belt on the machine, which we haven't adjusted yet, probably would help.
How many amps is that pulling, Jimmy?
Just under 6.
But yeah, right under 6 amps is where that is pulling. So you can see that arm articulate on that U-joint there. It's keeping it straight because of the cylinder, but at the same time, it does articulate on those U-joints. Same thing down here. It's almost like a gyroscope.
Well, the hole itself has another joint on it.
And you can actually hear it too.
Now it's almost 7.
All right, well, I'm gonna actually try to set this up, put it on time lapse, let it go so I can give Jimmy a hand. See you in a few. All right, so we got one hole done. Jimmy checked it out, the dial bore gauge. We are right on. We are ready to set up the next one. So the next step of this is Jimmy's gonna back off the actual stones because now that is bigger than that hole. And then you got the slide mechanism here, and what you do is you loosen that up and you slide it over and you get it. You want it, obviously we're centered here because we already set up the block, but what you wanna do is you wanna get this rod here centered with the cylinder here. So Jimmy's kind of locking it into place, and actually that looks pretty good, Jimmy.
I guess it is.
So then you just go in and you're going to lock that in right there, and all that is that's your slide for this head here. So when you go on to the next cylinder, what you do, slide it over, lock it into place once you got it correct each way.
And check the depth of the hole.
Yep, so Jimmy's now going to check the depth of the
Holy
hone.
moly. I don't think it's going to hit, but anyhow, we'll find out.
So he's going to find out if the depth is correct. And that's with our adjustable rod right there.
I bet it hit. No. Not going to hit. Maybe this is me.
Trying to get in there so you guys can kind of see what we're...
I'm about a 1/4 inch out of the bottom, so no, it's not hitting a thing.
Okay, so we're not hitting. It's got the capability to do the whole thing. So what he's doing now is he's just adjusting this out to where he likes it for the first hone. So what he's doing now is he's just doing his first kind of light hone on that. What's it pulling amp-wise, Jimmy? So it's right at where we want it as far as the resistance from the stones to the actual cylinder. So he's doing a little bit more adjusting. There we go.
And you can, it's kind of a rough gauge, but you can tell when the amperage goes down, the amperage usage goes down. That means you're not dragging as much on the motor. The motor's not hot. I just checked it with my hand. When the amperage goes down, that means you've been honing.
Like I said, we are going to do something a little bit different with this hose. It is what it is for right now. We got stuff we got to get done. So we're just using what we got.
It will have the air assist going soon.
Yep.
Put the lock. I got the lock.
There's the air assist we got to get working again. But it is what it is. But it, you can also do it manually.
It's got a good crosshatch.
So let's look at the other cylinder. Show the crosshatch on that. And the meaning for the crosshatch behind that is when you break in this engine and it seals the rings.
It's like a whole bunch of little files.
Yep, it'll seal the rings to the cylinder and you'll have good seal.
Well, what it does, it actually laps the piston rings to the cylinder.
So right here, what he's doing now is he is actually checking to see how much he's taking off. Now, mind you, we did set the gauge to how much we need to take off. So once it zeroes it out, that's where we know where we're good. And then he goes in and does a bunch of other checks with it, make sure we're good.
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. We're winning by maybe 2,000's already took right at 1,000 out of it right there.
So I'm going to go ahead and put this back on time lapse and we'll get honing. See you in a few. All right, so this side here is actually all honed out. We went ahead and, as you saw...
Did we get a little more?
All right, so we actually have this side completely honed. As you saw, we'd stop, we would measure with a dial bore gauge and keep going. And every time we would hone, we'd go check, make sure we were correct within the actual specs that we were looking at. So yeah, I mean, this side is done. And it actually has the nice cross hatchings in here and all that. So what we're going to have to do next is we're going to have to actually flip this engine block this way to do the other ones. And we'll go from there. So what Jimmy is going to do here is he is actually just scraping off any excess oil. As you saw...
I don't have a squeegee.
Yeah, I don't have a squeegee yet. We're going to get one of those little shower squeegees. So if you guys...
I'm going to order one because you put oil on them, all they do is get wavy real quick. It ruins them.
So if you guys saw as we were going through here, you'll notice that the oil starts looking a little bit more contaminated, and that's because it is. That oil not only helps lubricate these stones here, but any of the little fine metal that it is taking off, it's capturing that and dumping it back down. At some point, you do actually change this oil and all that, make it fresh. But yeah, so right now what Jimmy's doing is he's going to go in there and he's going to loosen those locks right there. And you can see in a little bit better thing, that thing actually slides in there.
My buddy.
All right, so we're going to loosen these slides. Went ahead and make sure everything was clamped. And we're going to see if this, to do the other cylinders here, take this here and you move it back.
Hang on to that so it doesn't go one way or the other. And I will show you. Yeah, I guess we did.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to level it up.
Okay. Yeah, it will work.
All right, now that we have it rotated like that, what you do is we're going to level this up. So you set a level on there, and I'm going to try to do this.
Set the level.
Set the level, and you pull up. I'm pulling, and Jimmy's on the other side. So yep, right there, and he's going to lock it into place.
Maybe. I didn't bring the right wrench.
Okay, so that's locked in place right there.
Well, one side.
One side, yeah, he's got to do the other side. You can probably get a little bit better of a picture in there, see how those things slide. So yeah, you lock that in place. Along with our bar clamp is locked into place. It's level. So first step is, just like our first step on the other one, I'm going to loosen this up, the slide mechanism here.
We're just going to work our way backwards.
Yep, work our way backwards.
Ugh. See, when I designed that thing, I didn't design it with the motor tipping this way. Luckily, it worked.
Got lucky this time. So he's going to check the main, make sure the stones aren't hitting.
Well, they're hanging out about a half inch. I don't know. One way to find out. Oh. Yep.
So you don't hear anything clicking and chunking in the bottom?
Cool.
You know you are good.
Actually, I got lucky.
So what he's going to do is he is going to adjust that out a little bit.
Find the hose.
And I'm going to come in here and try to get the oil. We'll come back around here and try to get a nice close-up shot of what you got going on here. So you can see those.
I'm going to sit, and once we get a pump that'll actually squirt more liquid,
Yeah.
I'm going to rig up a deal where it's just the hose can just like maybe clamp on here and it'll be squirting over
Yeah.
where it needs to squirt.
I got a couple ideas for that too. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just putting some oil down the cylinder, getting everything nice and lubricated.
Yeah, might as well just do them all.
So yeah, you can go through and get all these cylinders nice and wet with oil. So when you go to the next one, you're kind of ready to go. I did that with the other ones as Jimmy was making some adjustments. I would go through and actually get things all nice and soaked down with oil. What I'm gonna try to do, like I said earlier, I forgot my tripod. I'm going to try and get like a nice close-up of this thing actually working away.
There. Okay.
Here we go. We're gonna find out.
Thing's set. It is in the center pretty much.
Set center. We're ready to go. See what happens.
Not much.
So now Jimmy's gonna move it out just a little bit.
Now, I'm going to make sure where we're at on bore. Make sure nothing gooped up.
So he's just pulling it back out, and we are going to go check. We're going to go check, make sure the bore is where we need it to be. We still got a lot more to hone. We just like to go and check and check and check, because it's kind of like woodworking. Measure twice, cut once, but in this case we are.
Cut it off twice.
Yeah, you don't want to take too much off, and then you're kind of screwed. So he's using a dial bore gauge to check the diameter of that cylinder.
Got a long way to go.
So yeah. Now we got a quick reminder, we did bore this out to 4058, and we need to go to about 4060, 4061. So yeah, we got to hone a decent amount. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and get busy with that. So I'll just put this on time lapse. See you in a few. All right, well, we're going to call that a day. We still have a couple more cylinders to actually get honed out. I'm going to be honest, my phone battery's about ready to die, so I just wanted to get this outro video out of the way. You've seen the process. You've seen us do most of this engine block here. What we're going to do is, you saw in the last part of that, is Jimmy was starting to show me how to do it so I could do the rest. So I'm going to turn the camera off and just focus on getting the rest of that done and listen to Jimmy, learn a lot more. But yeah, it's actually not that hard to get this done. We showed you how to set it up actually in the machine. We showed you how to get in there and start honing, measuring, honing, measuring, honing, measuring. That's really what it is all about. It's kind of like the boring machine, but not near as, I'm going to call it technical on actually setting up how much you're taking off. This, you get the stones in there, you oil, you start cutting a little bit with it, honing. You watch your amp gauge, pull it out, check it. Repeat until your desired results. You will need to know your overall cylinder size, which you're going to have that information obviously when you board the engine. Then from there, you know how much you're going to hone for your piston to wall clearance based upon the specifications your piston manufacturer has in the sheet. Now with that, if you look at that sheet, there's different applications for street, drag, different fuels, and all that type of stuff. So you really need to take a look at your application, look at what they say for piston to wall clearance, and go from there. So with that though, guys, we do have a few other modifications we're going to do with this. We're going to actually make this on a worm gear to move the block back and forth. Still figuring out how we want to actually get the final part of the pump done. We're going to rewire a switch. It's about ready to completely die. But you know, with that, guys, it's been a really good day. This thing works very well. So after this, it's already been bored. Oh, you can go ahead, Jimmy. You're fine. It's already been bored, honed. It's been chamfered on the top. All we got left to do is, clean up the lifter bores and all that. It's going to go in the hot tank, and it's going to get cleaned up in there. We'll do a final cleaning, and you know what then? We can start assembling this thing. So with that, hope you learned something, and we will see you later. See ya.